Okay, so story time, but it's not about me. It's like an actual story, like a bedtime story for kids, but it's not for kids. It's about murder, and it's true. So Tom Dooley was born into a really, really poor family in the 1800s in 1845. When he was a teenager, he ended up sharing the household of someone named James Melton and their wife, Anne Melton. So Melton and his wife were not happy in the bedroom. So she was a lot younger than him, and she was about the same age as Tom Dooley. Tom Dooley and Anne start getting interested in each other. So with the consent of Anne's husband, they start sharing the same bed in the cabin. Tom Dooley volunteered to be a part of the Civil War and left. So after the war, Tom Dooley comes back and he resumes his weird relationship with Anne. So this girl named Pauline, who is a cousin of Anne's, moves in to this cabin with Tom Dooley. So Pauline and Tom Dooley start creeping. Instead of Anne being super upset, surprisingly, she was cool with it and actually joined in, which for back then in the 1800s, this was like unheard of. So soon enough, Pauline, Anne, and Tom are all like romantically involved together. While I guess James is just trying to catch some Z's, I guess. There's another cousin of Anne and Pauline's that moves to the area who followed Pauline down. And soon enough, she too starts getting it on with Tom Dooley. So Tom Dooley is now getting involved with 3 different cousins. The only thing about this affair, though, was that it was separate from theirs because she wasn't living with them. She was living in her own place. And from what I gather, the other 2 did not know that he was also seeing Laura. So Pauline has a secret, though. The first cousin to move down there and join Anne and Tom. Her secret was that she had syphilis. So not only did she come to the area for better opportunities, she came to the area for treatment because that area had one of the only doctors in the area. So naturally, Tom gets syphilis from Pauline, and he gives it to Anne and Laura. But because of timing, and when the symptoms finally rolled in, Tom Dooley originally thought that Laura had given this disease to him. And it is said that he vowed revenge on Laura. So Laura ends up disappearing May 25th, 1866. Turns out that her father woke to find that his horse was missing, and so was Laura. After weeks of searching, nothing turned up, and no one could find what happened to Laura. When all of a sudden, a rope was found that was apparently for Laura's horse. It was made to like keep the horse tied to the tree, and it was found near Tom Dooley's place. And also, a blood-stained gown was also discovered near Tom Dooley's residence. Suspicion automatically turned to Tom Dooley, and he fled for Tennessee, even though that there were 2 other women in the household that were getting it on with Tom who could possibly have motive. And ironically, Pauline ends up fleeing to Tennessee as well, but she returns. And when she returned, a whole bunch of people were asking if she had basically left for Tennessee because she had murdered Laura. Well, Pauline ended up saying that her and Tom committed the murder to this person. So then Pauline is arrested for murder, and she ends up being very, very afraid and starts saying everything that she knows about the situation. So Pauline ends up saying that Anne and Tom killed Laura. She even ended up leading authorities to Laura's body in a shallow grave in the woods. Her body had been badly decomposed, but evidence of a stab wound under her left breast was still present. In fact, she was apparently stabbed in the heart. So authorities soon learned that Tom Dooley was working for a Colonel Grayson out in Tennessee on a farm. Tom Dooley ended up finding out that the authorities were onto him and he fled the farm. But Grayson, the farm owner, ended up joining the search party and they soon caught up with Tom Dooley. Grayson ended up persuading Tom Dooley to give it up, and he ended up being taken back to stand trial. So once the newspapers and media learned about Tom Dooley's sex life, everybody wanted the tea. Everyone wanted to know, what the heck happened here? Who murdered Laura? So Pauline must have gave enough intel because she was acquitted, and Tom Dooley and Anne stood trial for the murder of Laura Foster. However, Tom Dooley ended up saying that Anne had nothing to do with it and that it was all him, so Anne was eventually acquitted and set free. So as scheduled, May 1st, 1868, Tom Dooley was hanged, but once he was at the gallows, he admitted that he had had nothing to do with the murder, but he still deserved to be punished. His last words were reportedly, "You have such a nice, clean rope. I ought to have washed my neck." So Anne ended up dying too. It's unclear whether she died in a horse and buggy accident or whether she died of complications due to syphilis or insanity. So not long after all this drama, a poet ended up hearing everything that went down between the Tom Dooley situation, and he ended up writing a wonderful poem that later turned into a song that was really made famous by the Kingston Trio in 1958. And still to this day, 155 years later, we are still talking about this true crime love triangle that is now a murder ballad that is still sung about to this day. Pretty cool. Here is Tom Dooley.
Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're bound to die. I met her on the mountain. There I took her life. I met her on the mountain, stabbed her with my knife. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're bound to die. This time tomorrow, reckon where I'll be. Had it been for Grayson, I'd been in Tennessee. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're bound to die. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're bound to die. This time tomorrow, reckon where I'll be. Down in some lonesome valley, hanging from a white oak tree. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're bound to die. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're bound to die. Poor boy, you're bound to die. Poor boy, you're bound to die. A poor boy, you're bound to die.